It was 3 a.m., and the eerie silence of the massive warehouse felt heavier than ever. I was alone in the building, or so I thought. The sound of squeaky wheels echoed down the dimly lit hallways, as though a cart was being pushed from the east wing. But I was the only one here. Or was I? I'd been working the night shift at a large medical storage facility for about 3 months. My job was simple: walk the building every 2 hours, check the security cameras, and make sure everything was secure. The pay was decent for the graveyard hours, so I didn't mind the solitude. But lately, something wasn't right. At first, it was small things. I'd hear footsteps when no one was around, or see shadows move on the security footage, only to find nothing there when I checked. I told myself it was just an old building settling, or maybe I was just exhausted. But one night, that all changed. It was December 15th, around 2 a.m. I was making my usual rounds when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of a metal cart rolling across the floor in the east wing. The wheels squeaked with every turn. I grabbed my radio and told dispatch I was investigating, then headed toward the sound. The east wing was filled with rows of metal shelves stacked with hospital supplies, casting long shadows in the dim fluorescent lighting. As I walked through the aisles, the noise stopped. Complete silence. I stood there for a moment, listening, but heard nothing. That's when I saw it. At the far end of one aisle stood a figure, just barely visible in the shadows. It looked like a person, but something was off. They were standing completely still, their back facing me, wearing what looked like a hospital gown. My heart skipped a beat. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty warehouse. "This is security. The building is closed." No response. I stepped closer, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. "If someone's there, identify yourself now." When I shined the light directly at the figure, it was gone. Nothing but empty space between the shelves. I checked the surrounding aisles and found nothing disturbed. No signs of entry, no knocked over items. The security system hadn't been triggered, which would have happened if anyone had entered. I radioed in, calling it a false alarm, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The next night, I was back at my post when something even stranger happened. Around 3 a.m., I was in the security office, reviewing the cameras, when one of the monitors displaying the east wing suddenly went to static. It flickered for 10 seconds, then cleared up. When the picture returned, I nearly fell out of my chair. Standing directly in front of the camera was the same figure from the night before, wearing a hospital gown with bandages wrapped around its head. I called my supervisor immediately. He told me to stay in the office and wait for the police to arrive. When the officers showed up, they swept the building from top to bottom. They found nothing, no signs of forced entry, no suspicious activity. But when we reviewed the footage together, that's when things got truly bizarre. The static was there just as I had seen. But when the picture cleared, the figure was gone. Only an empty aisle remained. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. The unease gnawed at me for the rest of the night. When I came in for my shift the next evening, my supervisor had something new to tell me. "Before you start tonight," he said, his tone serious, "there's something you need to know." He explained that the building wasn't always a storage facility. 15 years ago, it had been a temporary ward during a flu epidemic, and many patients had died there. In the East Wing, where I had seen the figure, reports of strange happenings had been frequent. Patients claiming to see figures standing at the foot of their beds, equipment moving on its own. "Here," he said, handing me a key. "This is for the storage closet in the basement. There's a box of sage incense down there. The previous guards used to burn it during their shifts, said it kept whatever it is at a distance." The next day, I quit. But the story didn't end there. Over the years, I found out the facility had gone through 6 different night guards in just 2 years. No one lasted long, And sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see that figure in the hospital gown, standing motionless at the end of the aisle, watching me. I never believed in the supernatural until that day, until that picture. It was the fall of 2017. I was a photojournalist working in the heart of New York City, chasing breaking news and trying to capture the raw emotion of the streets. One evening, I was assigned to cover an old building being demolished. It had been a landmark for decades, but no one had cared about it until it was almost too late. The building was supposed to be abandoned, but when I arrived with my camera in hand, there was something off. The air around it was thick, and even in broad daylight, the place felt eerily dark. I shrugged it off as my own nerves. I was used to working in uncomfortable environments. As I walked around the site, I snapped pictures of the structure in its decaying state. But in one of the photos I took, I noticed something strange. A man standing in the window on the top floor. At first, I thought it was an illusion. Maybe the angle of the photo made it look like someone was there, but when I zoomed in, I saw him clearly. A man in a dark coat with an old-fashioned hat. I checked the building. No one was inside. I figured it was a trick of the light or a fluke. But when I showed the photo to my editor, he was just as confused. "There was no one up there when we were there," he said. "Delete that picture." But something kept me from deleting it. The man in the picture had an unsettling, lifeless expression, and something about the way he looked out of that window made me feel sick. I started digging into the building's history, trying to figure out who the man in the picture could be. The more I researched, the darker things got. I found out the building had been home to a small theater in the early 1900s, and one of its most famous patrons had disappeared mysteriously in the 1920s, an actor named John Lawrence. The more I looked into it, the more bizarre things became. I began to hear strange noises at night while I edited photos in my apartment. Soft knocks, like someone was tapping on my window. One night, I swore I saw the same figure in my dreams, standing at the window of the building, looking right at me. And then it happened. I uploaded the photo to a photo sharing site just to see if anyone could make sense of it. Within hours, I received a comment. "It's him, the man in the window. He's been dead for years." I didn't know what to think. I deleted the photo, but the unsettling feeling never went away. To this day, I can't explain what happened. I've never taken a photo like that again, and I'll never return to that building. There are some things you just can't unsee.